This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Baby, what a win this one is! The most patient fans in the league, right to the dog pound, up and in he goes! The rookie out of Georgia goes right side 40, 45, 50, he stumbles a little bit to the 40, he's to the 30, 25, 20, 50, 10, 5, touchdown!
Greetings, Dog Pound Nation. Welcome to the Two Green Browns podcast, part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. I'm John Cahill. I am not joined by Neil Dunmore today, and you can check out all of our other media output on BrownsAccess.com. Before we get started here today, I would urge you all to go and check out our friend Zabo Apparel in Vermilion, Ohio, purveyors of the finest apparel in Ohio. Get online, buy their Support Each Other t-shirt. You will be helping out local families with that purchase. You're all very welcome to today's show. Today is the last of our fan interview shows. This little series has come to an end. We'll try and get a few more done in the next few weeks and get them out there, getting really good response to them. But today I got to chat to a person who I've been chatting online to for a long time. He is kind of like a personal guru for me with all things American politics and lifestyle and stuff like that. He's a really nice guy. Chase Richardson is his name. Chase is in college down in UCF in Florida, and he was staying with his grandparents, I believe. I got to see his lovely pool and his lovely little atrium where he was out when I was speaking to him. I could see the blue skies in the background as the rain was beating off my own window. I was very jealous of his surrounds down there, but I had a really good chat with Chase, and I've been having a good chat to him online this long time. So loves his Browns again. Ohio heritage there. Most of his family down in Florida now, but a really enjoyable chat, and really loved chatting to Chase, and we'll have to do it again. So without further ado, let's get to my chat with Mr. Chase Richardson. Welcome to the Two Green Browns podcast, Chase Richardson. Chase, how are you today?
Great. Warm, sunny here in South Florida. Very excited to be talking some Browns today.
Awesome. I'm just looking. I can actually see the blue sky through your window there. It's amazing. And sorry, where is it? South Florida you're in?
Yeah. So I'm in Port Charlotte. It's about an hour south of Tampa. So just down here, a couple miles from the beach, hanging out.
I have a colleague who's currently trapped in Tampa. Was meant to be home and back in work this weekend, but no, he's stuck with family out in Tampa. He's been out for vacation and hasn't made it back due to certain circumstances we have around the globe at the moment.
Yeah.
Anyhow, just first of all, I want to know. I said I've been interacting with you up and down on Twitter this long time with various different things. Tell me, the Browns. Where in your background do the Browns fit in?
So I'm actually staying with my grandparents at the moment. My mom works in the ICU, so her job has kind of required her to be, quote unquote, isolated at the moment. So I'm staying with my grandparents. My grandpa we're all from Ohio. I grew up about 30 minutes away from Youngstown in a very tiny place called Lisbon, Ohio. So I lived there until I was about 12, and then my mom got a job in Florida, so we moved to Florida, and our whole family has kind of migrated and followed us. My grandparents retired and came down and built a house, and both my uncles have come down and got houses. So our whole clan, quote unquote, has kind of migrated down to Florida. So it's been great, though. I mean, I love Florida. I go to the University of Central Florida for college, and that is in Orlando. So I live in Orlando most of the year, and Orlando is probably one of my favorite places I've ever lived. But it is nice to get to South Florida. It's a little bit slower down here, so it's nice every once in a while to get down here.
UCF, one of the only college teams I've ever seen playing in person.
Really? Where at?
In Dublin. UCF.
Oh.
UCF came over and played the Aer Lingus Classic against Penn State.
Oh
3 or 4 years ago. Mm.
yeah. That's I tutor the football players as like my side job, and in the athletic facility, there's a big wall dedicated to that game because it's some of the only international travel that college football teams have done.
Yeah, no, it was a really good game. It was really interesting experience. I remember who was the quarterback for Penn State that day? Got drafted to the Jets and subsequently was
Mm.
terrible.
Oh, was it shoot, yeah, what is his name? Um,
It's
it was the guy before McSorley. I'm trying to remember his name.
Hackenberg.
Yeah,
Christian Hackenberg. Yeah, or is it
Zach
Zach Hackenberg or
Hackenberg.
Christian Hackenberg? Wow,
Christian
Hackenberg.
Hackenberg. Christian
Yeah,
Hackenberg. That's his right.
Hackenberg.
That's right.
Because I remember he was the player of the day that stood out. Really, to be fair, in that game, and my son was really annoyed. He was only 7 or 8 at the time. He was really annoyed because they had no. You have it's like a knight or something. Is it as the
Mm-hmm.
mascot? And
Yeah.
he really wanted a knight. He really wanted like a mascot. To buy. There was nowhere to buy like any merchandise, and there was a guy in front of us from Pittsburgh, and he was there. He was there with his family. They're all Penn State fans, and he was saying, "Oh no, like Nittany lines are much cooler, like because it's a line, like And he wasn't having any of it. And just when we were leaving the game, the guy asked us for our address, and I gave him our address, and he posted over like a 5-foot Nittany line for my son. It was one of the nicest things someone ever done for us. It was really cool, and he still has it to this day in his bed. And he's 13 years of age, and he has a giant Nittany line.
You'll have to direct message me, and we'll get your son hooked up with some real merchandise from a real university.
You'll appreciate that. But at UCF kind of this national championship debate and stuff like that. So talk to me a little bit more about that, Chase. I'm very interested because like a lot of guys I know that are into college football would scoff a little bit at the UCF claims for national titles and
So you watched us right before we kind of rose, quote unquote, to national prominence. So college football is kind of funky, especially if you're more of a and only a professional football kind of guy, because it's extremely difficult to go undefeated in the NFL, but it's a little bit more attainable in college football. But when a large program like an Ohio State or an Alabama or an LSU, when they go undefeated, that typically means you're in the championship. Now, the last few years after they've introduced the playoff to college football, it made it easier for more teams to get in, because there's 4 teams, and there's even talk now about potentially expanding to an 8-team field within the next few years. But UCF won 25 straight games in what's called a non-Power 5 conference. So there's 5 conferences that are the Power 5, and then there's 5 that are non-Power 5. They're called the G5 or the Group of 5 conferences. So UCF is in the American Athletic Conference. So that is kind of a lower conference, maybe not as talented of players as the Big Ten, which is where Ohio State is, or the Atlantic Coastal Conference, which is where Clemson is, or the Southeastern Conference, which is where Alabama and LSU are. So the whole thing for us was, as UCF Knights, was we've won 25 straight games. We can only play who's on our schedule. The schedules are determined typically years in advance. So our whole thing was, we just want a shot. When we went undefeated that first year in 2017, we were the only undefeated team in college football. And in our bowl game against Auburn, we beat the only team that had beaten Alabama on their schedule in the bowl game. And Alabama is the team that won the championship that year. So for that reason, we claimed a national championship, and it is technically recognized in the NCAA record book. So it is technically a recognized NCAA championship, because there's a million. If you go back through the history of college football, before they had a championship game, they would just they would just vote on who the champion was. So there's 100 claimed titles out there. Ohio State has 8 championships, and I think 3 of them are actually just only claimed. So for that reason, when people say, "Oh, fake national championship," I say, no, real national championship. Because we beat Auburn, and Auburn beat Alabama, and Alabama beat everybody else. So what's that make us?
Yeah, no, that's it's something it's something I see popping up every now and then, and it's kind of like I think what a lot of guys do, what a lot of college football fans do is like they circle the wagons with the top teams, and it's like you can't get into this group. This is this is our elite. This is our little posse here. You can't come in, and I think they've been doing that now with UCF, and I think UCF have taken steps though in the last few years to address stuff like strength of schedule and stuff like that. Haven't they? Like, you know,
Yeah, we're playing North Carolina next season, and we played and destroyed Stanford last season. So I mean, there has been steps. We actually have the largest enrollment of any college in the country. So it's not like we're like this tiny university out in the middle of nowhere. We're a very large, prominent institution. So we have money, we have resources. You know, here's hoping that maybe Disney gives us some kind of sponsorship. Corporate backing is the, you know, kind of the only show in town in Orlando.
Yeah, that's pretty
And
cool.
I think UCF is, I think we're, you know, kind of a sleeping giant in terms of what college football could be, because, you know, you figure team in Florida, you know, right by Disney, you know, you're only 35 minutes from the beach. I mean, there's a ton of appeal in terms of, you know, kids maybe from states up north. If I was, you know, not getting an offer from an Alabama or a Clemson or an Ohio State, I mean, UCF for me would be at the top of my list, just because I mean, it's great. It's a great place to be. It's a great program. A lot of people.
You look at the minute in Florida, and you look at the FSU, Florida. No one exactly, you know, pulling up trees or making claims to be a great team there at the moment.
Well, I think the University of Florida, I think they're going to be in kind of a stronger spot, at least next season. But in terms of Florida State, and I mean, we don't even talk about Miami, how bad they've been for you know, whoever knows how long. I mean, you know, talent and stars notwithstanding, I mean, I think UCF is pretty strongly in front of Miami at this point as a school and as a program. I mean, just in terms of the health of the team and everything. I hear every year, oh, this is the year Miami will be back. You know, Miami's back this year, and it's never the case.
Yeah, no, I think Miami are still living in the early 90s. You know, they're still living off former glory. Ed Reed went back in there this year, I think, and I think they were looking at one point. Alonzo Highsmith was touted to go back in capacity as well, and like to get guys back in there and to get it rolling. But I think, you know, as I said, their time may have been, and it may be, you know, time for someone else now. Chase, we'll segue on to the Browns, the free agency. How has that gone for you? How have you viewed what has gone on in free agency the last week?
Well, I have tried to temper my excitement after the events of last season.
Oh, I'm in the same boat. I'm in the exact same.
If this was any other year, I'd probably be leaping through hoops already. Yeah. I think that I really like what they've done because I was a little bit shaky on the Hooper signing just when I saw, you know, largest deal for a tight end ever, but then I kind of saw the contract structure, how it's very front loaded and gives them flexibility later in the contract. And I saw that, you know, they were maintaining cap flexibility moving forward, and that it was, you know, it was a big deal, but it wasn't so big that I think, you know, in 2-3 years when you see a guy like George Kittle and Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce, when all those guys get paid, I think a few years from now that contract might look like a bargain, you know, just the way the tight end position is trending.
Yeah, it's kind of like, and I suppose that the terminology I've seen used a bit related to that has been market inefficiency with how tight ends are being paid. Do you feel David Njoku is going to be used as a trade or as for traded for picks, or as trade bait for something, or do you think they're going to keep both those guys on the team? I'm not convinced to keep Njoku, to be honest. I think they could trade and address with another tight end, or you know, I just don't see them you know, being in love with Njoku, to be honest.
Well, I think with anything with professional sports, I think if the right offer comes along, obviously you listen. And in that same vein, I do think that it. Oh, sorry, I do think it helps Njoku that his you know, kind of someone who is with the staff that acquired him is back. I think that might help his case a little bit, just in terms of Barry being there. I don't know that they're in love with him, but I do think just watching back some of the All-22 from the Vikings last year, I do think Stefanski is, pretty in love with 2 tight end sets. I do think they could address it in the draft. So I think if the right offer came along, I think they would do it. But I think at this time, I'm kind of leaning that they'll just keep him just because Njoku is such, kind of a physical specimen. And I think that as a blocker, at least, I think he could really make some big leaps. And Hooper obviously is a very complete tight end, and I think that maybe having another tight end in the room with Njoku could help him as well.
I think if you offered me a 3rd round pick and, you have Pharaoh Brown, Ricky Seals Jones, Stephen Carlson in the room with Austin Hooper and a 3rd round pick, I'm listening.
I think I definitely tend to agree with you. It just, and from my point of view, at least, unless you can find a sucker like Bill O'Brien, I don't know that Njoku at this time would be worth a 3rd.
Get 2 firsts.
It's a shame that he's not a washed up running back, or you might be looking at a 1st for him.
God, we could have got 2 firsts for Kareem Hunt. I just didn't come and get to claim Kareem Hunt with a second round tender.
Well, Kareem Hunt's still good, so I don't even know if they'd make an offer for him.
Yeah. No, geez, I don't understand what the Texans are doing. I really don't. And I think it's a classic example of giving one guy all the power and he's just running with it.
They keep giving Belichick's former assistants the same power that Belichick has with the Patriots, and it doesn't, kind of compete with me. But
Belichick,
because they're not. I mean, okay. So this is the thing I've always said: you go pay the guy standing next to the guy, and you think you're going to get the guy, and you almost never are. You know what I mean? Like I could, if you want to take the NBA for example, I could go pay, one of Greg Popovich's assistants. I don't expect to get Greg Popovich. You know what I mean? Just because he's been in a room with him for 3 years. He doesn't have the insight or the. It
was like the Sean McVay scenario last year with coaches. Like you sat beside Sean McVay for 2 weeks, you were getting a massive contract to be a head coach.
Well, I think that's kind of the trend in football nowadays, anyway. Though, especially in college, is young, hot shot, offensive, quote unquote genius kind of guy, quarterback guy. I mean, you got Ohio State with Ryan Day. You got Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. I mean, Dabo Swinney's not young, but he's still young-ish. I mean, really the only old coaches doing it are, Saban and, even Ed Orgeron's not exactly young. But, I mean, there's not really a ton of very, very old coaches doing it right now.
The guys that are successful are there a while. They're in their roles and they're very well cemented in there. Chase, before we go, I'd like to talk to you about your studies and about what you do and what you get up to, because it's kind of what attracted me to chatting to you in the first place, and our interactions on Twitter. I think it people would be interested to hear about it.
Well, so I tutor UCF football players on the side, and then for my real job, I am a full-time law student. This was supposed to be my last semester of college, but now the rest of it's online. So I graduate in May, also online, and then I am enrolled at Florida A&M University for law school in the fall. And so I am a prospective law student. I'm hoping that I can tie that into sports. I actually just joined their Society for Entertainment, Sports, and Art. So I'm hoping that'll help me make some connections in the sports field. Yeah, no, I think that's maybe the end goal. I think that would be really cool and exciting. My current job, I'm a fundraising coordinator for a congresswoman in Florida. She's a member of the House of Representatives. Her name is Val Demings, Florida District 10. And so that's my full-time job currently. And I'm hoping I turned down a job with the Orlando Magic to take my current job because the pay was better. But if I can't get into kind of like an agent or marketing, I think I would really like to get into salary cap analysis for a team, because my minor is statistics and math. So.
Wow. And do you do like on just out of interest, like do you look at like the over the cap, the sport tracks, doing the stuff like that?
Oh yeah, obsessively.
Okay, right. Because I'll be really honest with you, Chase. I don't want to know anything about the cap other than how much we have to spend and how we can spend it. There's a lot of people out there who are really into it. I'd love to understand, like, and I'd love, right, so like, actually, now that we have you on and we've established this interest in the salary cap, all these 1-year contracts we're signing, to me, it seems like a good idea for one specific reason. It gives you really ultimate flexibility. So when we're going into a year where we're going to have to look at extending a couple of players maybe next year and the year after, it's given us breathing room for a year to see if any of these guys stick. If they do, pay them. If not, they're gone. And it gives us that flexibility. Is that the theory behind the 1-year contracts?
Here's what I think what the ultimate goal of it is. It's exactly what you said. If they pan out, you can extend them. They're young guys with something to prove. For the most part, all of them have been under 27, as far as I know, other than Sandejo. And I think that outside of a couple guys for veteran leadership, they're signing guys for flexibility in the future. So I think that this draft, given what they have on offense, they're going to go pretty defense heavy, other than perhaps a tackle at 10. I think they're going to go pretty defense heavy at the positions that they're signing guys in free agency. So they're going to have a guy who's, a few year of an established veteran in front, and then they're going to have a rookie learning for a year. If they don't stick, the rookie can step in next year as a sophomore after a year of learning the playbook and getting acclimated to the speed of the NFL. I think it's a really, really smart move, and I think it gives them a ton of flexibility moving forward because they're going to have to pay, obviously, Myles Garrett and Baker coming up in the next, couple years.
And so, Chase, I'm just sitting back here and I'm getting the picture. Like, I'm fascinated with TV shows and especially with TV shows and with movies relating to football.
Mm-hmm.
I've always keen interest. Like, so ballers. You're in the right location. You're going the right career path. Is that what we're going to see on a yacht? With OBJ.
Well, I don't think I quite have the frame to get as big as The Rock, but maybe at least I can get a piece of the yacht. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's a fascinating career track, and I've often wondered how people would go down the road, and I never thought for a second that, and I suppose when you think about it logically, like an agent who's going to be looking after your contract negotiation, having a law background would be really handy, for that. And to register as an agent, do you have to have a qualification? Do you have to have an actual qualification?
Well, as far as I know, at least in terms of professional football and professional basketball, I believe the minimum qualification is a bachelor's degree, so a 4-year degree in the United States. Plus, they have to have a certification to represent people in contract negotiations. So it's a little more lax than some career tracks. Obviously, you don't have to have a full, 7-year law degree, but getting into it can be quite difficult. A few people I know, like a man I know who was a few years in front of me, he was my peer mentor in my first year of college, and now he is sitting in on contract negotiations for players on the Tampa Bay Rays. So he sits in, like, he's not the agent, quote unquote, but he's sitting, a few seats down from the guy who is the agent, helping, taking notes, reading through contractual language and, assisting with some of the, the minutia that goes along with contract negotiations. So that's kind of the path that I'm hoping to take if I, don't get interested in something else or, don't get interested in salary cap. But there's a ton of positions, especially in the NBA. Like, the NBA is pretty obsessive with the salary cap, and the Orlando Magic are obviously 15 minutes from my law school. So my first year of law school, and this is the case for all law schools, is you're not allowed to work your first year because it's typically you're looking at 50 to 60 hours a week anyway, just from schoolwork. So the American Bar Association prohibits you from working for your first year, and then your second and third year, you're usually allowed to work about 20 hours a week. So I'm just working now, trying to save up, and hoping my girlfriend, bless her heart, finds a job so she can support me for the next 12 months.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that situation. I've been through that myself, having been supported through a couple of years in returning to education. So, look, it's one of those things. It's one of those things, Chase, that you get through together, and you do it as a team, and you come out the end of it, and it's all done.
Absolutely.
it's you look on now as a hard time, and I suppose the context of, like, all our worlds have sort of changed in the last week, with our world outlook as to what's going on, like with the spread of coronavirus there in Florida. How are you coping there? And I just actually had this thing in my head. I was thinking about it last night, even like Florida, like the population of Florida is got to be on the older side of the.
So where I'm from, where I'm at now, is called Port Charlotte, and about 15 minutes south of here, across Charlotte Harbor, is Punta Gorda, and these two towns have the second highest average age in the entire United States. Right next to Phoenix, Arizona. That's it. It's those two cities. So the concern for us, obviously, is a little bit more dire, just in terms of isolation and staying away, just because there are so many, mobile home parks, condominium places with people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And my mom works about 45 minutes south of here, and I mean, even there, it's such a retirement heavy population that they're concerned about the hospitals potentially getting overloaded in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and like you have grandparents there, your mom working in ICU, I have a brother that works in ICU, like it's a concern. Like we haven't seen my parents here for 2 weeks. We won't be seeing them for another few weeks. The same with kids. I have two older kids to live with their mom. I won't be seeing them for a few weeks. Like, and it's just, it's a sacrifice we all have to make. We have, look, Chase, you're in Florida, I'm here in Ireland. We're having a chat. We're seeing each other. You know what I mean? This is going to be the norm here for a few weeks. Like,
Oh yeah.
And we just kind of have to get on with it. And it's like what I'm doing here today is I'm recording pods with as many people as I can, because I'm bored. It's a lot. And I want to have some content for people to listen into over the next week, like just something different, because there's no sports going on.
Oh yeah, I know.
Nothing out there. So for yourself, for the next week or two, Chase, what have you on the agenda for the next week or two? A lot of Netflix.
Ton of Netflix. I'm not a huge gamer, but I do, own a console and a computer, so I'll probably be playing some video games with my friends. My girlfriend is pretty heavy into computer gaming, and she has a Switch that she likes to play, so she'll probably come over and we'll, hook up Mario Kart or something like that and hang out. I was gonna have a few friends I have a pool here. I don't know if you can see.
Oh wow!
But
it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so my grandparents came and they have this pool, so I think we might grill out or something and hang out and just try and keep to ourselves.
Chase, the flights at the minute are really cheap. I might be there for Tuesday.
You're welcome anytime.
It's fantastic looking. I can't get over how blue the sky is there behind you when I'm looking up at it. That's amazing. Just like, I can't turn the camera on here now because it's just cold. Ooh, camera's gone out. It's just cold and wet and rainy outside. You can't see there. Here at the moment.
Well, I won't tell my grandfather, because he keeps bugging me to go to Ireland with him.
He wants to go for a trip, does he?
Well, both his parents were from Cork, so yeah. So he really wants to everyone to get back, here in the next few years.
Yeah. No, that'd be awesome. Let me know if you're making plans. I've been helping a few. I've been doubling up as a travel agent here and there for for people making trips and making suggestions. It's always handy to have boots on the ground, when you're going somewhere. But look, Chase, thanks very much for joining us today. Really enjoyed it. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
No bother at all. Cheers.
If you're like me, then every Saturday in the fall is the best day of the week for you. There's nothing like waking up, turning on the TV, and getting ready for a whole day of college football action. Whether you're watching from the stadium or from the couch that day, there's still nothing like the excitement that builds as you wait for your favorite team to take the field. The problem, though, is that for most, this excitement only comes on Saturdays. Here at the Flagship Football Show, we think every day should be College Football Saturday. That's why the Flagship team works all week to bring you the best recaps, previews, interviews, topics, and discussions on all things Ole Miss football. Tune in every Wednesday for our new episode on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, and follow us on Twitter at Flagship FB Show and on Facebook at The Flagship Football Show to keep up with all our coverage. And remember to stay with us every single Wednesday all year as we bring you everything you need to know about the Flagship University in Mississippi, on the flagship football show.